Let's rock and roll, sister.
Rock and roll. Hello, welcome everyone to season 1, episode 2 of my podcast. My name is Liza Whitehurst. I am a grad student at Westminster College in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm passionate about all things organizational health, leadership health, human development, workplace culture, you name it. And this podcast is just a way for me to talk to leading experts in the field who are also passionate about those things. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Carolynn Morris, and I was connected to her through my professor. And first, I just want to say, you may be the nicest person I've ever met. Like, you're just a cheerleader and a champion of people, and it's amazing. And I don't use absolutes lightly, so yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks, Liza. You're so kind.
Carolynn is a speaker, communication consultant, workshop guru, and life coach. She is passionate about authentic connection and believes that all relationships, whether professional or personal, are created, maintained, or destroyed by communication. So, Carolynn, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so fired up to be here, Liza. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, of course. First, tell us what you do, because you like do the best of both worlds. You just tell us.
Yeah. So, pre-COVID, the massive throat punch to the entire world, I was doing speaking engagements and events, and then that kind of got turned upside down. And so I actually landed this wicked sweet gig where I could do learning development for a company out in Boston. And they are a delight. I absolutely love who I work with. I love the people, the culture, and being part of that and being an integral part of like evolving that culture and the people and development. Oh, Liza, like I love it. It's my jam. So that's what I get to do, is I get to help people communicate more effectively, more efficiently, people engagement, culture evolution, DE&I, all bread and butter right there. Like, I am stoked about it. So that's what I get to do.
That makes me so happy for you. And it's so cool that we live in a day and age where you here in Utah can work for a company in Boston. And
yeah.
Have you developed a Boston accent yet?
Boston? No, but I can do a pretty good New Yorker. Like, hey, can I get a hot dog? Can I get a hot dog here from my friend?
So we'll slowly work our way across the map to Boston, down and over. And you?
Yeah. I need to visit more frequently there is what I've decided. So I'll be like, hey friends, you want to fly me out there? Like, I'm in, let's go.
Hey, heck yeah. Well, today we have I'm super excited about the topic that we're talking about. The more I looked into it, the more I realized I have this, and everyone I know has this to some degree. And I think it is a critical conversation, especially for leaders in business and in the workplace. And that topic of conversation is imposter syndrome. So Carolynn, do you want to start and tell us a little bit, what is imposter syndrome?
Well, it's wild because like so many people have different definitions of imposter syndrome, but like distilled at its most rudimentary definition, it's really doubting your abilities and feeling like you're a fraud. Because so often we feel like we have to know everything before we go do something. And that's 100% not true. Like, if we're doing something new, we are learners. Like, we're figuring it out. We're trying the nooks and crannies. We're tightening the nuts and bolts. And so people are like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I feel like a fraud. Yeah, you don't know how to do this. You're new. And that's the joy of life, is you're going to try something new. So if we stop treating ourselves like imposters and frauds and evolve that mentality of, I'm growing, I'm evolving, I'm figuring it out, I'm trying something new, I'm trying something a little bit in my stretch zone and not in my comfort zone, all of a sudden people will be like, oh, I'm a freaking baller. Like, I'm digging this. This is awesome. Instead of like, oh, I can't do this. Like, yeah, you can't do this because this is your first rodeo. Like, and this is why we have mentors. This is why we have colleagues. This is why we have coaches. That's the entire point of like mortal existence, is to like evolve and grow. And some people want to stay in their comfort zone, and other people want to be in the stretch zone, and other people want to be in the panic zone where they're like frantically trying to do all of these different things. But like, if we can figure out how to oscillate, so like if you look at it like a bullseye, the stretch zone, you have the comfort zone, the stretch zone, and then the panic zone. And if we can oscillate between the comfort zone and the stretch zone, all of a sudden our comfort zone becomes so much bigger because we're willing to push our boundaries and we're willing to evolve. When we get to the panic zone, that's really scary stuff, because like we're legitimately scared that it could be unsafe. It could be like, there's a lot of things that go into that panic zone. And so figuring out like, okay, what are truly my limits and how am I going to push those in a healthy way? And that's when we get into that experience of a growth mindset of, I'm not an imposter, I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm evolving. And I'm using that stretch zone to my advantage because I have people and a network that I can call in to help me evolve that.
Wow. Our next podcast episode will be how to have a positive attitude like Carolynn Morris. I love that. No, that's great. I'm curious, when did you, I don't know, first hear about imposter syndrome? What sparked your interest in it? Any standout ways that you've experienced it in your career? That's kind of like a threefold question.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people. So I grew up in a home full of boys. I have all brothers. And so we are a very competitive family. And I love it. Like, it's just a good time. We get to razz each other. We get to have a good time. But like at the end of the day, we had each other's backs. And so there was something that was really helpful as I like was going through my education experience and going through some of these different career phases, that it is so important to have people who are in your corner. And I call those a personal board of directors. And I legitimately have like a sit down conversation with these people. And I'm like, hey, this is where I want to go. This is my vision. You have been in the trenches with me, or you have helped me get out of the trenches. You've known me for, X amount of years. We have a similar vision. We see the world a little bit differently, because I want to have like my blind spots checked. And because like they're blind, so I'm not going to know about them. So I need someone to tell me, and I need someone to have radical candor with me, or else I'm not going to get better. That's just reality. Like, you can't see your blind spots because they're yours. Like, there's a reason why you have to have other people, And so what sparked my interest in it is that I was sitting with a group of my girlfriends. There was probably like 5 or 6 of us. And they started like sharing these really vulnerable experiences about how they felt like they were imposters and how they felt like frauds. And I was like, you ladies have graduate degrees with like 7 years experience. Like, unpack that for me. Why do you feel like an imposter? It's like, well, I've never done this project before, and I've never done this before. And I'm like, that doesn't make you an imposter. That makes you a learner. Like, what are you doing? That is wild. That's such a different mindset to me of like, because I'm doing something new, I'm an imposter. That's 100% inaccurate. We have to understand, like, am I an imposter because I feel inadequate? And why do I feel inadequate? Where did that come from? So it's like distilling, what is the thought that's causing me to feel like an imposter? Was someone telling me that I wasn't good enough, that I'm not qualified enough, that my credentials aren't enough? I'm like, you ladies have graduate degrees. You are incredibly eloquent. You have all these grand ideas, and yet you're too scared to say them because you're scared of someone else's damn opinion. Like, you've got to be outside your mind to not share that. Like, that's like saying everybody has to love bluegrass music and everybody has to love heavy metal. Like, that's absolutely not the case, because I don't like either of those. Like, give me some country, give me some, give me some R&B, give me something else. But like, just because your idea doesn't resonate with one party doesn't mean it's not going to resonate with another. So find your brand of people and let them champion you on and bring them with you. Like, get your personal board of directors in line, make sure you know your vision, and like, make sure you know what you bring to the table, like, know your offer. Because when we know our offer, we're able to take those doubts out. And inevitably, we're human. So of course we're going to have some doubts, and we're going to have some like, oh, like, is this really good? And then that's when you have to bring on your board of directors. Like, I need you to check me. Like, am I out of line? Am I on course? Like, is this just a termite in my mind that's trying to like derail me from what I really need to do? Or like, what's happening? So it's important to have those sounding boards. It's important to understand, like, am I doubting my abilities? Am I doubting my credentials? Am I doubting my passion? Am I doubting like the environment that I can really flourish in? What is it that's causing you to doubt yourself?
You mentioned one of just doubting your abilities or doing something you've never tried your hand in before, but what are other red flags that I think I'm going down a dark path? I think I'm spiraling into this imposter mindset. What are some like kind of common red flags?
Usually people have a really hard time accepting their accomplishments is another thing that people have been like, oh, no. Like, that wasn't that big of a deal. Like, honey, that was amazing. Like, check you out. Like, let's celebrate that, because then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I am doing a good job and I am killing it and I am bringing other people with me and we're elevating together. Because the more we try to stiff arm people and not let them in emotionally, the more we're going to feel like an imposter, because nobody's actually seeing the experience. And so often, I mean, even in commercials, we only see the result. We don't see the journey. We don't see the face plants. We don't see like the bruises and the bumps along the journey. And that's what people get caught up on, is all of the hiccups of like, I'm a freaking imposter. Like, last time I checked, this is the first day of, like 2021 that you're ever going to have to do this. So like, you're never going to get this day back again, nor will this ever be repeated in history. So every single day is a new slate. What are you going to do with it? Like, if you take that learner mentality every single day of like, this is my first rodeo, it's March something. It's March 24th, 2021. Like, I will never get March 24th, 2021 ever again. So what am I going to do with that? I'm going to learn. I'm going to improve. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to make sure that my board of directors are keeping me in line too. And sometimes that means recalibrating, but it's really when people don't accept their accomplishments and they feel like they're a fraud trying something new. Those are like two of the key indicators of the imposter syndrome.
Feeling a little called out right now. This is good.
Good. Like, let's go, Liza. We've got too much to do to like be imposter syndrome. Like, let's go.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Question: is there a trend in who suffers with it more, men or women?
I mean, the jury's out. I would personally say that women probably suffer a little bit more from that, primarily because of the historical discrimination of women in the workforce. So they automatically feel like they have to prove themselves or exert themselves more than their male counterparts, because so many times women are trying to get a quote unquote seat at the table. And sometimes when that doesn't happen, it's like, well, how come I don't have a seat at the table? Honey, go make your own freaking seat. Like, go pull up a chair and you sit your rumpus down and you have your seat at the table. And you know what? It might be squishy, might be cheek to cheek, but like, get in there. Like, there's nothing that says that you can't have a seat at the table besides yourself. And like, we have to get out of our own minds. We have to get out of our own way. And we have to be able to make some bold moves. I'm a firm believer that we just have to have 10 seconds of insane courage and just go for it. Like, could you imagine if someone excused you from the boardroom and you're like, you know what? I have the exact same credentials as everyone else in here. No, like how come Johnny's not leaving? We call that a penis privilege, and I'm not about that. So I'm going to sit right here. And like, and then it's almost like to the point of like calling it out of like, help me understand how come I need to leave versus my male counterpart.
Oh, that's
like,
a great tactic. Great practical.
Yeah. Like, help me understand what the strategy is here. Like, oh, and I'm like, penis privilege. Okay. Yeah. That means I'm going to stay right here and we're going to elevate this and we're going to diversify the room and we're going to diversify the thought and the way we're going to do things. So, woo, girl, you get me fired up about this stuff. I'm just like,
that's amazing. I love that you're so fired up about it.
It really does. It gets me fired up.
So say you're a boss in the workplace and you have a coworker that is really struggling with this imposter syndrome. They're really hard on themselves. They are not accepting their accomplishments. How could a boss kind of best bring somebody out of that, or believe the best in someone, call them higher? Practically, how do you think a boss or a leader could call someone higher?
Phenomenal question. I mean, it comes down to psychological safety. If the employee feels safe with you, if you are their manager, if they feel safe with you and you're like, hey, you know what? Susan, help me understand how come it's a little difficult for you to accept compliments or to really step into your achievement, and dive into that. And don't accept the first answer. Say like, that's an interesting perspective. Dive, like, let's unpack that together. What does that mean to you? And go deeper and deeper until you get to the root, because until we address the root, everything else is just a branch and it's not going to get anywhere. It's going to percolate again. We have to get to the root and figure out what is actually happening. What is stopping this person from stepping into who they really want to become? I mean, is it the imposter syndrome? Is it a lack of skill set? Is there a gap somewhere that you as a manager or a boss can help bridge of like, you know what, Susan, I have your back. We're going to figure out this gap together and make it a we victory. Like I am in your corner. So we are going to figure this out. It's not a, Susan, you need to figure this out because I think you're an all-star. So like, you need to figure this out. Like that's really abrasive to me and really intense. Whereas if someone took the approach of, Susan, I think you are an absolute all-star and I would love to see how we could help you step into that light, to help you step into that. Like, what are we going to do that?
Interesting. Kind of along those same lines, you really talked about just how beneficial it is to have a personal advisory board, a sounding boards, mentors, coaches. How do we have those mentorship coaching relationships in the workplace? Like practically, is it just asking someone? In another part of that, it seems like to have these relationships, there has to be an understanding that conflict isn't a bad thing. And, you know, calling something out in somebody isn't a bad thing. It's not an offensive thing. It's calling someone higher. So I'm curious for you to touch kind of more on the whole mentorship side of things.
Yeah. So often people want to be mentored like immediately without ever giving anything up front. It's like, oh, you know what? You're 20 years into this. I want you to be my mentor. It's like, whoa, that's a take mentality. Like, what are you going to give? What are you going to show that you genuinely want their mentorship and their guidance and their coaching and their advice? What are you going to show? What are you going to do to front load the sacrifice to show that you actually want to be with them? Because what makes you different than anybody else? Like everybody else wants their time and attention too. So how are you going to be any different? So how are you going to serve the person first that you want to have be your mentor? What does that look like? That's going to be totally different. Like maybe you do some research on those people. Like social media is like pretty solid in your people research, if you will, of like, well, what are they interested in? What do they like? Who do they hang out with? Figure out, like, they are your avatar. Figure out where they go. Figure out who they're around. Figure out what they're invested in. Figure out like what platforms they spend their time on. Figure that out. Because if I just go up to someone and say, hey, I think you're awesome, and it sounds like you have some cool accolades, and I'd really love to learn how to do that, they're gonna be like, yeah, you and everybody else. So like you have to differentiate yourself. Like if we go in with the servant mentality, then all of a sudden we're building relationships, we're giving service up front, we're adding value to their life first, and then it's going to come back. And then it's going to be like, okay, now it's a receive time. Because the give and take, I think, is actual garbage. It's so important to exchange that for a give and receive. Like, am I willing to receive this help? Am I willing to receive this mentorship? Am I willing, like, we have to give and then we need to receive, because take can be really scary sometimes. It's like taking means that you didn't actually have permission to receive that. If we're taking it, like, no, I'm going to receive that. So what does that look like? And then as far as like how to go about doing that, look at someone who is 5 years ahead of you, 10 years ahead of you, 15 years ahead of you in what you want to accomplish in your life, and reach out to them and say, you know what, I saw that you love to golf. I would love to take you golfing. Okay, you know, a back nine, I'm in, let's go. Like, this is going to be a good time. And so it's figuring out how are you going to build an authentic relationship with the expectation that like this is going to evolve, and you set that playing field. Like, okay, you know what, this person loves to play pickleball. Oh, this honey loves to play pickleball and it's free. So that's like a double dip, and you get exercise and you get to have fun. And so all of a sudden, like, you get to form these relationships that are real, and that you both have a commonality in that. So figure out what the commonalities are, figure out who's 5, 10, 15 years ahead of you, who have already ran that race, and who could help you bridge some of those gaps and potentially mitigate some of those face plants that are inevitably going to come in every person's career, every person's life. They're going to be able to help mentor you through that.
And realize that just because somebody gives you feedback or critique, it's not like a personal indicator of your worth. I think so many times with like mentorship or coaching, people are like desperate to sign up. And then the one moment they get some sort of like harsh feedback or criticism, it's what? How dare you? Like this is not for me. This is, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have grown so much from the negative feedback or the constructive criticism. Like I am at a point now where I want that and I will ask for that, because that's, like you said, the blind spot.
Yeah. And we have to know our blind spot. And it's all about the delivery too, because if someone came in and said, you know what, Carolyn, your last speaking engagement totally blew chunks. And I just was like, I left shocked. Like, oh, well, shoot, let's talk about that, like,
or you, I never want to talk to you again.
Yeah, just be like, it sounds like we're missing the mark. Like, it sounds like we had a miscommunication. So instead it could be like, hey, Carolyn, I would love to talk to you about your previous speaking engagement. I have some things that could really up level the next experience for your next company, if you'd be open to it. Like, get their buy-in of like, hey, this is what I have to offer. If you're open to it, I'm totally happy to share it. That the delivery is going to be crucial in how someone receives that. And we have to have emotional intelligence to understand, like, is this person going to be available to receive this? Because you know what, like, there's this guy named Ezra Benson who said the toughest battles we will ever face will be within the silent chambers of our own souls. And so if we treated people like that, if we treated everyone like they were facing the harshest battles of their entire existence, how much more compassionate would we be in our feedback? How much more kind would we be when we're engaging with other people? Like, oh man, I don't know what's going on behind that smile, but I can guarantee you there's some turmoil going on.
Yeah.
So how are we going to do that? What does that look like? What does that feel like? Get their buy-in of like, hey, you know what? Now's not a good time, but let's rain check to tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So like, get their buy-in. It's like, you know what? Because like people are going to be like, oh, you know what? It is not a good time. Like, I'm on the cusp of tears. Like, I have had it up to my eyeballs. Like, I am so stressed. Like, let's rain check to tomorrow. I mean, they don't need to divulge all of that, but it's one of those things where it's like, hey, this is what I have to offer. Are you open to it? Cool. Let's set a time tomorrow. And that's great.
Cool. So kind of going back to imposter syndrome, you've given so many great practicals. I kind of just want to sum it up. So I'm going to ask some questions with the intent of just very practical things that we can do to fight this. Okay, so I'm Liza. I'm at work. Say I hit a huge milestone at work today. I did. I got our company to 10,000 followers on Instagram today. It was a super big deal. And then I found myself thinking, it really wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, it took a few months. No one's really going to think it's like that exciting. Anyway, so say Liza's at work. She has this moment where that red flag goes off. I think this is that unhealthy talk that Carolyn was talking about. What can I do? What can I walk myself through to kind of get on the other side of that?
One of my knee-jerk question to that is, why are we making ourselves the victim? Why is it like, oh, no one actually is going to care? Like, why are we if we're making up stories about ourselves anyway, why don't we make ourselves the hero?
Oh, that is like, so good.
What? I just hit 10,000 followers, everybody. Like, you are welcome. Like, what? Killing it. And like, the thing is like, we are so like results obsessive that we forget to celebrate the journey. We forget to celebrate and like take a look back, like look in the rearview mirror and be like, yeah, what's up, everybody? I killed it. Like, if we're making up stories, like, make yourself the freaking hero. Make yourself, like, why do we have to have this victim mentality? Why are we mind reading and injecting other people's presumed narratives into our own? Like, that's like, shoot, if we're going to do that, like, shit, oh my gosh, I pretty much raised someone from the dead with 10,000 followers. You are welcome. Like, make yourselves a freaking hero.
That's good. I think there's a fear that comes with that, though, with like, I don't want to be prideful. I don't want to be arrogant. And I had that thought too, when you were talking about knowing what you bring to the table. I'm like, oh gosh, like I started thinking, what do I bring to the table? And then I was like, am I being prideful? Am I being arrogant? So again, how does one kind of do that without getting prideful or arrogant?
Well, I mean, sometimes we do get puffed up a little bit, right? But life has this thing called karma, and it comes back swinging. And so it's gonna be like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, okay, cool, cool, cool. But like, I'm still awesome, like I'm still cool. We're still good. It's a face plant. It's okay. The difference is like, what is your intention? What is your motive? Because if your motive is to be this really hubris, bombastic, prideful person, people will sniff that out like that. I mean, there's no coming back from that. There is like, people will know instantaneously. But if it's like, guys, can I share a victory that I had at work today? And I'm like, oh, let's hear it, Liza. Like, let's go, girl. And then you get to share it. And they're gonna be like, I knew you had it in you. Like, I knew you could do that. I knew that you could fire that up so fast. 3 months. Like, who does that in 3 months?
Oh
like,
gosh, it wasn't 3 months.
But still, like, whatever it was, right? Like
months.
Yeah, months. Who does it in that amount of time? Like, kudos, sister. Like, way to go. So like, again, it goes back to like, what is your intention? Know your offering. It's okay to call a spade a spade. It's okay to say, this is what I bring to the table. Because if you don't know what you bring to the table, other people will not ever know what you bring to the table. And so how are we supposed to elevate a culture if we're so stuck in other people's narratives that we're making up anyway, because nobody's even going to tell you? It's going to be like, well, you know what? I'm going to make myself the hero. Cool. Like, I'm going to be my own superwoman. Like, let's go, everybody. And like, you can be Captain America, and you can be Iron Man, and you can be like whatever superhero you want to be, but like, be yourself. Like, be your own superhero.
Wow. That's good. Yeah, before we get close to wrapping up here, I want to ask the question for our male followers, because kind of my research in imposter syndrome has been that women do suffer from it more, but I almost think it cuts men deeper, like maybe more women experience it, but for men who are looked at as the hero or as the achiever or as you're the one that's bringing home the bread or this or that, I feel like it's more of a painful wound for men to have these kind of feelings. Have you noticed that, or can you touch on the male side of things?
I mean, I am not a male. I do not identify as a male. I grew up with all brothers who range in confidence, skills, education, lifestyles, everything. And what it comes down to is you have to know yourself. You really have to be anchored in your core, because if you're not anchored in your core, you're just gonna be tossed with everybody else. Like, the media tells you that you should do this, you shouldn't do that, you should be this, you should be that. And you know what? The media can freaking shove those shoulds where the sun don't shine, because shoulds, like, they don't serve anybody. Like, when you hear the word should, there's a lot of guilt and shame and expectation and mixed emotions. And so figure out what you need, what you want, and what you would like to do. Because until you know what you want, need, or would like to do, you bet your bottom dollar that those shoulds are going to be coming in hot. And you're going to be like, oh, well, I should do this and I should do that, and I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't be that. And it's like, you know what? Shoulds are other people's needs projected onto you. So that's a them problem, not a you problem. So figure out where you stand, and you have to be anchored in your core. Like, if you're not anchored in your core and in your own moral compass and values and vision, everybody else has an opinion. Everybody else has something that you should do. I mean, even in our own families, people should on us of like, oh, you know what, Carolyn, you should go get a PhD. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, God bless all the PhDers out there, but like, that's not my route. And so what I do is, when people do that, I ask them, like, how would that elevate our relationship? Like, how would that impact our relationship? Because I'm having a hard time understanding why I should go get a PhD when A, it's like wicked expensive, 2, that's my time, my resources. And like, so other people want a piece of your pie. And if you give it to them, then that's your prerogative.
Yeah. Dang, that's good. I feel like we could do an entire season on this. And I love, my biggest takeaway is just make yourself the hero. I love that. It's so empowering. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And like get yourself a theme song, like legit, Liza. No lie, I have a theme song every single year. And every single year it's like around something that I want to achieve and something that I want to do. So for example, like the Sarah Bareilles song Brave, that was my theme song a few years ago. Like say what you need to say, like go do you, sister. Like I'm all about that. And then this year it's like actually totally and purely instrumental. Like it just speaks to my soul. I'm like, this is what I need to do. Like I need to make my own song. And I'm going to insert my own lyrics. And so that's something that I've learned is that like to truly honor myself, like, yeah, I'm going to choose what I'm going to bring into my life. And I'm going to be very intentional with that. Like, so my theme song, oh girl, it's good. I'll send it to you. It's like, oh, you just feel the vibes and you feel like, oh, it's so good. I'll send it to you.
Okay, I can't wait. Yeah, it reminds me of I had a walk-up song. So I played softball for a long time and I had a walk-up song and it was always like Lil Wayne or something, but it just got me so pumped. And I'm like, man, I need to be doing that when I walk in the door to work every day.
Yeah, like get your superhero song on every day. Like make yourself the hero.
That's amazing. Well, before we wrap, if you listen to my podcast, my last podcast, you know that I'm a big fan of the podcast called At the Table by Patrick Lencioni. And I just love that he does kind of fake sponsorships because he's not sponsored. And big shocker, neither am I. So we're going to do, not yet. Yeah, that's right. We're going to do, it's time for the segment of fake sponsorships. So Carolyn, I know you've got some products you're super pumped about, and I can't wait to hear about them.
Yeah. The first one I'm going to go with is Numb Nuts. Oh my word. Okay, so these are paleo-friendly, numb nut-worthy maple and rosemary infusion mixed nuts. Ooh. They're life-changing. They're super tasty. They are to the left of my desk, and they will just make your taste buds super happy. And then the second one is Kodiak cakes. Local. Because you get 14 grams of protein for 200 calories, and they taste like heaven. Particularly the almond poppy seed. Those ones are my ultimate favorite.
Wow. Amazing. Okay. I am the one that did this, but I did not prepare well. So I got to think of what I want to sponsor first. It just came to my mind. I'm a big fan of boxes, and I just wonder like who created the first box of like, if I folded this here in this way, I could be so much more efficient and I could carry so many things. It's like such a modern marvel. And I'm like, wow, boxes. I'm like, we don't give them the appreciation that they deserve. So, yeah, first big shout out to boxes, cardboard, wooden, crate, whatever your medium of choice. And then my second product, I think I'm going to sponsor Malden sea salt flakes. So it's finishing salt, and they're shaped like a square with a little pyramid on top, and they're like so bougie, but they're inexpensive. I mean, they're more expensive than regular salt, but it's like I can just sprinkle some here, sprinkle some there, like, and I just feel like, I don't know, the Queen of Sheba, like the bougiest woman there ever was.
So bougie.
Yeah,
so bougie.
Maybe that's my walk-up song, is like I just have a walk-up breakfast every day. I'm like, I'm a boss. I'm eating Malden salt. So anyway, well, Carolyn, before we go, let people know how they can find you and plug anything that you'd like to plug.
Yeah, so people can contact me on Instagram, Facebook, or my website. My website is myorangesoul.com. So myorangesoul, SOUL.com. And that's also my handle for Instagram, Facebook is Orange Soul Tribe. So if you want to chitter chat, like let's chitter chat. I'm all about it. And I'd love to have conversations and diversify, different perspectives and ways of thinking. And like, let's keep unmasking imposter syndrome, because it's wild out there.
Yeah. Well, amazing. Thank you so much, Carolyn. It was so good to chat with you. And I know I got a lot out of this, and I'm sure our listeners will too. So thank you so much, and we'll see everybody next time. Goodbye.
Bye. It's just me. It's just my normal mic on my computer. I have nothing swanky. So
one day.
One day.
When Numbnuts sponsors you.
Yeah, Numbnuts, Kodiak cakes. Oh, they're so baller.
Get this girl a mic.